This is Mark 4:18. And these are they which are sown among thorns, such as hear the word, and the cares of this world, and the deceitfulness of riches, right? The cares of this world. Like I stated before, many shows in the past. The world, something that's in the world is the things of the world are hollow, meaning they're empty, they're fleeting. Here 1 minute, going to the next. They're frail, meaning they're weak. And the deceitfulness of riches. Why would I say the deceitfulness of riches? Because riches are deceitful. You'll think your riches is going to always be there, but eventually at some point it's going to run out. And the lust of other things entering in. The lust of other things entering in. The other thing that they desire entering in their heart, meaning their mind. Choke the word and it becometh unfruitful. So if a person sows a seed among thorns, once that seed starts to grow, whatever that grows out of it, it gets choked by the thorns. It gets tangled up in the thorns. And therefore the growth becomes stagnated. So those things choke the word, doesn't allow the word to grow, and it becometh unfruitful. The word can't grow into a tree that produces fruit. It becomes unfruitful. Because the things of the world, in other words, the seed that's sown among thorns, those thorns, which represents the cares of this world, didn't allow that person to become fruitful. Didn't allow that person to produce. See? These scriptures are important. So when you read the scriptures, you got to put yourself in the scriptures so you can fully understand it. Okay? 2 Timothy 4:10. For Demas hath forsaken me, having loved this present world, and is departed unto Thessalonica, Crescens to Galatia, Titus unto Dalmatia. But that's the point I want to get to. The Apostle Paul is speaking about Demas. And he says, Demas hath forsaken me, having loved this present world. So guess what? Demas was that seed that was sown among thorns. He loved this present world, and is departed unto Thessalonica, Crescens to Galatia, Titus unto Dalmatia. So that's an example of somebody that once believed, but they lost faith. Because right here in Colossians 4:14, Luke, the beloved physician, and Demas greet you. So the Apostle Paul is saying, Demas greet you. And there's another scripture right here. Let me go back. Philemon 1:24. Marcus, Aristarchus, Demas, Lucas, my fellow laborers. See? So he referenced them as being fellow laborers. Look at the word Demas.
Strong's G1214. Demas.
Governor of the people, a companion of Paul who deserted the apostle when he was a prisoner at Rome and returned to Thessalonica. So he basically abandoned the apostle Paul in his darkest hour. Check that out. So anybody can go from being a follower, a fellow laborer, to someone who loved the present world like that when things get tough. Or he could also be referenced to that seed that was sown among the stones, among the wayside. When tribulation cometh, by and by is offended, but also reference to them thorns. The thorns, the care of this world, and it said he loved the present world. So there you go. That was him. He was not a seed that was sown among good ground. See, because you could be a person sown among good ground. That's the elect. The seed sown among the wayside, when tribulation cometh, they get offended. They ending with joy receive it, quickly with joy receive the word. They like the way that it sounded and all of that, But when tribulation came, they were offended. In this case, Demas, he loved the present world. So the love of the world, so he was that seed sown among thorns, the care for the world, and lust entering in, and the deceitfulness of riches, choked the word, and there you go, he was unfruitful. 2 Ezra 14-15. It says, and set aside the thoughts that are most heavy unto thee, and haste thee to flee from these times. So it says to set aside the thoughts that are most heavy unto thee. So we read that, we broke that down. And haste thee to flee from these times. So you gotta set aside the thoughts that are heavy unto you, those thoughts that are like heavy burdens unto you, and haste thee to flee from these times. Quickly you gotta flee from these times. Let's get a scripture on that. 1 Peter 1:13. Wherefore gird up the loins of your mind. That's how you flee from these times. You're not actually running away. You're fleeing from it figuratively. So it says hasty to flee from these times. So if we read all of the scriptures and it's talking about casting off burdens and putting off the weak nature and letting go of mortal thoughts. It's talking about all these things, these mental things, these all mental burdens or spiritual burdens that you're undergoing being in this truth. So how do you haste to flee? By girding up the loins of your mind. See? You're reading things about casting off mortal thoughts, putting off the weak nature, casting off those heavy burdens. Those are all mental things, spiritual things. So now that we casted off those things from our mind, we now gotta gird up the loins of our mind. Now your loins represents like your lower abdominal area. That's the area of the body where the term gird up your loins is basically talking about a person that tightens their garment or fastens their garment around their waist so that they can be more mobile and travel or in a fight. Like when people get ready to fight and they pull their pants up. Those are an example of gird up the loins of your mind. So it says, wherefore gird up the loins of your mind. Look at the word loins.
Strong's G 3751. Asfus. Asfus.
Doesn't really give us anything there. It says, of girding the loins and readiness for active service for the Lord. It says of girding the loins of the mind. Girding suggestive of alertness, necessary for sobriety and for setting one's hope perfectly on the grace to be brought at the revelation of Yahushua. So there you go. That's how you gird up the loins of your mind. By being alert. You having the alertness or the focus that's necessary to set your hope perfectly on the second coming of Yahushua, on the grace that's to be brought. So that's how you gird up the loins of your mind. You gird up the loins of your mind. Be sober. So he's giving you an example. Wherefore gird up the loins of your mind. Be sober. Meaning what? Being clear-minded, being aware. And hope to the end for the grace that is to be brought unto you at the revelation of Yahushua. So that's how you gird up the loins of your mind, man. Look at the word gird. So it's not talking about actually literally girding up your loins. It's talking about girding up the loins of your mind.
Strong's G 328.
Anadzonomy. To gird up, metaphorically, be prepared. A metaphor derived from the practice of the Orientals, who in order to be unimpeded or slowed down or restricted in their movements were accustomed when starting a journey or engaging in any work to bind their long flowing garments closely around their bodies and fasten them with a leather belt. In Oriental, that just means the East. And that's what they would do in the East, in the Middle East. Okay? So just as they would gird up their loins so that they wouldn't be impeded in their movements when starting their journey or engaging in work, we got to gird up the loins of our mind so that we wouldn't be unimpeded in this truth, so that nothing will slow us down. Girding up the loins of our minds by removing those mortal thoughts, by casting away those burdens, by putting off that weak nature, and by us casting those things off, letting those things go. We are therefore girding up the loins of our mind. So now that those things are gone, now we're no longer impeded. We can no longer be slowed down. You know what I'm saying? So this is important. You know? And he even mentions the Passover, because you can associate that with the Passover. This figure is taken from the circumstance of the Israelites as they ate the Passover in readiness for their journey. Because we ate the Passover, we was on foot. So that's the point there. So with that, I'm gonna close. I hope I learned something. With that, I'm gonna say, all praise Yahweh, Bashmi Asha. All brother learn something. Shalom.